Hi, I'm Pawan.
I'm Monica.
Between the two of us, we've well over 5 decades of working with 5 generations in the workplace. And we thought that it was about time we explored what it is that makes for good productivity across generations. To do which, we're going to have to go well past the superficial level of intergenerational sniping and ask and answer some hard questions.
Questions such as what do we not understand about Gen Zs and what do they not understand about us? What does it take to keep them in the workplace? What's driving them away? What have we forgotten about what it's like to be starting out? And finally, what can each group learn from the other?
Excellent. If you're interested, therefore, in understanding how best to maximize intergenerational connections, please do tune into our episode on what we call generational conundrums. Thank you.
Go for it.
Welcome, Monica.
Thank you and welcome to you too,
Thank you.
Pawan.
Thank you. Since we're co hosts, we have to welcome each other. Nobody's going to do it for us. What we thought we'd do today is talk about the generational cohorts at work in India. We figured that there's, for the most part, 4 generations at play in the workplace.
Yeah.
At play in the workplace. Haha. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about all of them, but mostly we're going to spend our time and effort on understanding how Gen X, the latest entrance into the
Z.
workplace,
We are X.
I'm sorry, how Gen Z, see how I can't even phrase that, how Gen Z fits into the workplace, some of the troubles they've been having, and which of these are new and which of these are really just old wine in a new bottle. And it's incredibly important because, and Monica, I know, has some of the numbers around this, um, because they are the largest entrant into the workplace and very soon will form the largest component of it. Do you want to talk about the numbers a little bit?
Sure. Um, this is the largest population cohort, and they're almost 50% in the workplace at the moment. And another 8 years, I think the rest of them will be in the workplace as well, and that will make them the largest generational cohort in the
Wow.
workplace. At the moment, they're close to 30%. In the next 5 odd years, I think they'll pass the 40, and then
Does 30% not make them already the largest cohort?
no, I think pipped
By about
by a
5%,
little
right?
bit is
Yeah.
millennials, and
Yeah.
then there's the rest of us, Gen Z, Gen X, and baby boomers as well, holding the fort. So,
Right, right.
yeah. Yeah.
Not
So, you
awesome.
know how when we started work, I remember there's this know it all sort of rhetoric, right? When in our generation, when we were young, we used to walk to school bare feet,
Through
going
the
uphill through
jungle.
the jungle, uphill both ways, going to school and coming back. And that's how hard it was for us to get our first break and so on, right?
My
And
maternal grandmother, did you read her memoirs? This sounds a lot like my maternal grandmother. If
so
my mother's watching this,
we,
I get skinned. Okay,
oh
let's
boy.
get this.
Yeah.
Let's regain a degree of seriousness here.
Yes, let's. So, well, I mean, you
Oh,
hear every generation's version of the hacking through the, through the jungle to get an education story, right?
hmm.
And invariably, what happens is there is a story that we're telling ourselves of we, were so amazing at this,
Mm.
and look at all of you slackers. Our generation was called the slacker generation, in fact,
Yeah.
right? And I remember you were saying something very interesting about your sort of state of mind when you start to work versus the sort of conservative approach that comes in later. So,
Yeah, yeah. When you're younger, you tend to want to change the world. You're a little
mhm.
bit more of an anarchist. And I use the word in its best possible sense. You want to make the world a better place. And as you get older and you have more money and more of a solid footing in the world, it's not in your interest to challenge the status quo. And I think the best way of looking at this, honestly, is if you look at this through the lens of politics. If you take the US, for example, a lot of people start off voting liberal,
Mm,
right? And move to the GOP or the Grand Old Party once they've amassed enough of a 401k.
right.
The same
Mm,
trajectory, if you like, takes place across the world,
mm,
not just in politics, but also just in the way that we present and engage with the world. We start off as anarchists and we move to being more conservative.
Right, absolutely.
And I guess it's happened to us.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember believing I was a light that, came into the world and changed it, and that
Like
was
a
what I felt.
lightsaber or like
No, just
Lady
the
Liberty
the
with a lamp?
light, like, yeah, like,
Jeez, wow.
you know. So, and it's true also of organizational lore, right? There are
Sure.
organizations that we will not name who were like move fast and break things, and now there's not very much that they're breaking
No,
or
no, no.
moving very fast, I dare say.
No.
So
You probably
there's
get a debit note and have it, taken away from your monthly paycheck if you were to break something.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, caveat though, before we move forward,
Yeah.
which is that we're very aware of the fact that there is no specific, here are 5 ways in which Gen Z is different from us that will work for the entire cohort. And the reason for that, of course, is there's socio-cultural differences, there's an urban, semi-urban, rural sort of divide, there's cultural references, financial imperatives, all kinds of reasons why people from the same sort of cohort will have very, very different realities, decisions, and life trajectories. We're aware of that. Our conversations largely in the context of urban, large, mid-sized organizations where
Absolutely.
a lot of these dramas, as we said earlier, are playing out.
Absolutely. And so there will be exceptions, but we're trying to get as much of, uh, if you like, the median section of the audience that we're talking to as
Yeah.
possible. Right?
I have a question for you,
Okay.
which is from your vantage point of talking to the kind of leaders that you talk to inside of organizations. What are their questions? What are they befuddled about when it comes to Gen Z?
They're all honestly variations on the same thing, right? But the articulation, I think, is really along 3 or 4 lines. Why is it so difficult to hold their interest? Why are they in such a hurry to move on? What would it take to keep them back?
Yeah.
And why aren't they satisfied with the status quo? I think these are the 4 axes that are here, the questions along. And you can tell just by listening to this that it's all variations on the one theme, right? Which is, what does it take?
Yeah.
Of course, I laugh.
Yeah.
And I laugh mostly because this is really a case of plus a change, plus a
Loose
mention,
element
right?
shows. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just a fancy French way of saying that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because we've asked the exact same question of the millennial generation. So
Yep.
this is just the wheel going full circle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
If I were to ask you a question, what question would you like me to ask you?
The converse, I suppose, which is,
What do? Yes, absolutely. So again, by virtue of your work, and also because I know that you like engaging with young people a lot, what questions do they have of you when it comes to the workplace and of the generations that currently occupy the seats of power, if you like?
Sure. So I'll kind of ratchet up as we go along to
Yeah.
more and more serious questions. Why do I get the least value work? Why am I seen as the person with the least amount of skills when it comes to tech, though, I'm seen as a bit of a savant, right? So that's, the starting point, which should tell you something. Why is it that all organizations have the same 3 or 4 sort of values? And why is it that the first chance they get, they go against these values and they say, yeah, but shareholder value. And we've all seen the memes. We've probably passed on some of the memes because, there's a huge grain of truth in what they're
Oh,
saying.
of
And
course.
you and I remember having rallied against exactly that kind of thing and saying, why even have these values if you're not going to live by them?
Stated versus
Actual. Yeah.
absolutely.
Another set of questions are around career growth, salaries. Why is there such a lack of transparency around that? Why is there so much subterfuge? What is this colonial mindset of trust us, will take care of you? And again, immediately turn around and do mass layoffs, right? This whole story about we're all family, and then suddenly you're out of the family and in the cold.
Hey, I know families like that.
Yeah. Right. Also, this whole set of Why is it that time, which is either in the form of number of hours that you work or tenure, why is that the most important method of calculating my capability and contribution? Right? Why is physical presence so important? Why can't I index more on getting things done?
I don't think it's the most important. It's the easiest, and
Yeah.
therefore the laziest.
Yeah.
It's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's a proxy for performance,
Yeah.
and not a very
Correct.
good one either.
Not a good one. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I have to sort of summarize what we're looking at so far, I'm going to say this. Already we've said a couple of times that there's so much that sounds similar to what we've said, and therefore um, we've said when we were younger, and therefore the submission that um, a lot of change happens very glacially. So we ask some of these questions, and in our time, we've seen huge progress in terms of, say, the POSH law, just articulating inside of an organization and taking seriously what does it mean to have anti-bullying laws, what does it sound like to have fair representation across groups, various DEI initiatives, workplace fairness related cultural shifts, right? And a lot of these have happened because of some of the questions that us and millennials have asked. And I'm going to actually say that this is a time honored tradition of pushing for change. And, you know, a lot of good will come out of a lot of these
That's from the
questions that
perspective
the.
of the incoming
Yes.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
And well, I haven't heard you take up cudgels on the behalf of those walking the corridors of power, nor do I intend to, but let me perhaps say this. It's again, I think, almost a meme at this point that the generations in power will bemoan the capabilities and laziness of the generations coming in. And when I say it's almost a meme, it's because I think this goes back to Greek philosopher times when people have said things like they have no respect for their elders, they walk around half naked in the agora.
Correct.
All the way down to somebody.
Aristotle and Socrates,
Yeah. So
actually.
all the way back to every century, there's been somebody off note who's bemoaned the generation coming in.
Yeah.
And I think that just has to do with the shifting dynamics of power. You have a generation that's holding on to power. You have a generation coming in that wants their share of it. And that seesaw is teeter-tottering, as it should.
As it should. So if we have to really quickly look at what do you think is driving them away from staying put?
Right. Uh, I think there's push and pull, right? And let's address the pull first because I think that's not given quite enough share of voice and it is more powerful. The pull is I want to go do a master's, I want to do something else, uh, I want to go to a different organization where I think I will be more valued or I will be doing the work that I like. Yeah, I think these are the ones. I mean, pulled away from this because I see more value, and that could take various shapes. And oddly enough, people don't even want to hear about the pull.
Yeah.
They're like, you're here, you're getting decent money. Why not just stay?
Yeah.
Forgetting bleakly, of course, that a couple of a decade and a half, 2 decades ago, they were the ones doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
Yeah.
on the push side of things, that's easier to understand. They don't feel valued. And managers, that's something you need to watch out for, right? This whole idea of benevolent positive feedback, I don't think gets quite enough credence in our times. So they don't feel valued. They don't feel integral to the organization. They don't feel supported. They don't feel part of the team. They don't feel important enough to the manager. And most importantly, I think, they don't see the big picture. The number of times I've worked with people where I said, have you explained or I've asked whether they've explained the big picture to the teams, and you can tell that they haven't.
Yeah.
We all do our best work when we feel part of something larger than
Yeah,
ourselves.
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the push and pull from my
Yeah.
perspective.
Very similar for me. So I'm going to then move on to maybe talking about the exact opposite of it, right? Which
Okay.
is what keeps them in the organization.
Yeah.
And that's, almost a mirror of what you said, which
Sure.
is um, you're feeling accepted, you're feeling respected. There isn't a question of, am I safe in the organization you are, both in terms of physically feeling safe as well as psychological safety.
Yeah.
There is mentorship, and which means that I know for sure that there's at least one person inside the organization, ideally more, that I can go to understand the craft that I'm supposed to get better at.
Yeah.
And there's a clear path for me to do that at a pace that I want to do, not because the organization wants me to grow in 2 to 3 years. So, my growth will happen only at that pace now.
Mm.
Right. So the mentorship is individualized for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This care, and early in your career, care counts for a lot, of course, because you're still figuring out your feet, you're figuring out are these my people? Yeah. Clarity of thought and clarity of goals, like you said, do they know the bigger picture? The number of organizations that I work with where they don't necessarily know what they're working towards, end of the month, end of the quarter, what are annual goals. Most often I get the answer, but those are subject to change, which is fine. But you definitely need to know till it changes what is it that you're moving towards
Mm.
collectively, and therefore, how does that break down into,
What I need to do, right? Absolutely.
and therefore, in the absence of that, and in the absence of also kinds of workplaces that seem to attract them a lot more, which is smaller organizations, startups, and so on,
Mm.
the invariably the things that sort of come with the territory quite often are disrespect, toxic culture, long hours, lack of just fundamental consideration, there being not enough honesty in the system, not enough self awareness higher up in the organization, right? So even if I go to somebody and say, hey, you know what, maybe this person's looking for feedback, give them feedback to say, we didn't receive this kind of feedback. We received feedback once a year, we were fine with it.
Mm.
So
So are you, did I misunderstand, or were you saying that smaller organizations tend to have a sort of, for the most part, a slightly more difficult time mentoring and giving feedback?
a difficult time figuring out what they stand for,
Mm.
because they're still not, for the most part, a composite, well, established organization.
Right. So the
It's
people on top are
still,
still figuring out their
yes,
game.
yeah, it's still very often cult of personality.
Mm.
Oh, but we're a startup. We're going to move fast. We're going to
Break
break
things.
things. And therefore, if a couple of necks break, then who cares? I mean, not literally,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I know.
yeah. I mean,
But
if your morale breaks, how do I care?
yeah,
Sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If I break a couple of people's will along the way,
Along the
then
way.
that's
Yeah.
natural collateral damage, and
Correct.
that's not okay.
No.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I've seen large organizations have the same
As
problem,
well. Yeah, yeah,
right?
correct.
Because as we know, if you think of a large organization as a composite of multiple smaller organizations within
Sure.
it, it just comes down to who leads that team.
So, moving on to another question, which is, what do you think? And I'm really pulling out of what you said about, really comes down to who's leading the team. What do you think current day leaders have forgotten about what it's like to be starting out?
Yeah, I think they've forgotten the uncertainty and the fear, right? The and really uncertainty should not be the same thing as fear, but it's often conflated for it. The uncertainty of, will I fit in?
Mm,
Will my new manager mentor me? Will my teammates like me? Do we understand each other at a non-linguistic level, right? But even at a linguistic
even
level,
at,
if India
yeah,
is so complex that
yeah.
you could all end up speaking different languages. Do we? Will I like the work?
Mm,
Mm, what's it going to be like living away from my parents for the first time?
yeah.
Because even if you went to hostel,
Mm,
that's still a boundaried structure,
correct. Correct.
right? So you're dealing with new living arrangements,
Mm,
new workmates,
mm,
new flatmates, potentially. The new work itself, which is a much larger circle than all the others. And so there's a lot of change, and you're negotiating all this change at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's probably like the first 2 years. I think you get better at it very quickly.
Yeah.
But the first couple of years, I'm going to say, is when this all feels like one big sort of jigsaw that you haven't yet figured out the key to.
Right. Yeah, the first couple of years, very sharp learning curve, right?
Right.
Yeah. And as you said, on the personal axis, there's the whole figuring everything out.
Yeah.
Financial responsibility, having clean clothes to wear for the next week, getting enough sleep, making sure there is some semblance of well being. Am I meeting friends? If I have them, can I make friends? All of that. And on the work front, as you said, just figuring out the balance between, am I being taken for granted because I'm working longer hours to prove myself, or am I prioritizing boundaries to a degree where I'm alienating people on the other side of that boundary, right? So,
Yeah.
in fact, there was a Deloitte study this year, and I think they do it every year, about the state of work. And one of the things that has come up is this very nice Venn diagram of what makes them happy is money, well-being, and meaning. And I'm like, hey, that's us. We've just forgotten that that's the way to kind of think about work, right? Circumstances have changed. You kind of focus on one thing or the other depending on where you are in your work and life currently. But it's not a new idea. It's just that they are calling it out, and there are people listening to them in the way that maybe they weren't in our time.
We also didn't have the
We
platforms,
didn't have the platforms, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
We didn't have the platforms. We also didn't have the luxury of some kind of a fallback system. If you think about most people our age, right? Our parents, if we were lucky, had enough money to send you to, well, put you through the educational system, whatever that was for you.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that was a struggle by itself. But they certainly didn't have the kind of wherewithal, for the most part, to say, it's all right if it doesn't work out the first time. If you can't make it work, and that has to be, ring fenced within, what will you try to make it work?
Yeah.
And we can talk about that. But if you can't make it work, there's no shame in letting go. It's not quitting
Right.
if you're letting go of something that doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
But that was the narrative we were fed, that you will dig your teeth and claws into this and hang on for dear life,
Yeah.
because now you're on your own, child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that put an enormous amount of pressure.
Pressure. Yeah. 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 There's no opportunity. There's no option to turn back
There's no option to
or
turn.
slow down.
No. You're on the treadmill, you're on the treadmill. And I think that's change, and that is definitely a change for the good.
Yeah. What do you think has it changed into, or what do you think it's changing into?
Parents, I think, are more, have more financial wherewithal to give the kids a better crack at the big cherry. They have more of a broad base of knowledge and an understanding of the world. Many of them have worked abroad, if not have at least engaged with people who live overseas. And a lot of that slightly more liberal form of thinking has seeped into the parents' consciousness, where they're okay with saying, you don't have to pursue a STEM education if you don't want to. You can try this out, and if it doesn't work, you want to come back home for a bit, you want to study, you want to try for this other exam, you can do that. You can do something completely left of center if that's what floats your boat. So, broadly speaking, I think what I'm saying is that parents are a lot more accepting of non-traditional choices and taking time off.
Yeah.
That's what I think it's changed into.
Yeah.
And I think that's an excellent thing within limits.
Yeah.
Right? As long as it doesn't mean that your kid's going to live with you till they're 40 and not contribute to the rent. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a crutch,
As long as it's not a crutch. Yeah.
I think it's an excellent thing.
Let's switch now to talking about a couple of questions, right? One is, what do you think you'd like to learn from them? And then we'll ask the other question with a little twist, which is what do you think they could learn from us? But that's a few minutes away.
I was watching this brilliant podcast by Professor Arthur Brooks at Harvard,
Mm,
and I think we were talking about this before we started, right? And he said really there are four kinds of careers, and he wasn't talking about your, whether you're in the manufacturing industry or in consulting or in finance. No, no, that's not what he meant. What he meant is there are really psychologically four kinds of careers, the way people see the careers. And he said, that the traditional way of looking at a career is that it's linear. You take one step after the other, and you change jobs only when there's a better job. And better is measured in terms of the power that you wield, the scope that you have, the money that you make. So very
sure.
relatively easily
Tightly
metricized,
scoped.
right? Measures. And then there's a kind that sort of the kind of person who bobs on the waves and there's no judgment, but the kind of person who says, oh, what I want to do is travel the world or travel the country. And if I meet somebody I'm interested in, then I'm going to settle down in, I'm from Chennai, but I'm going to settle down in Ludhiana because that's where the girl that I love is from and she doesn't want to leave her parents. And it's possible that 5 years from then I will say, oh, actually, you know what? I want to go back and help my parents with their business and I want to go back to Chennai. And so you sort of bob around, moved by circumstance. That's another kind. Um the third kind is what he calls the expert, right? Which is somebody who really anchors to a certain kind of work, let's say academia, for example, and becomes an expert in that for the larger part of their working life. Academia, like I said, university
Sure.
professors.
Medicine, maybe.
I'm sorry?
Medicine.
Medicine is a good example, right? So you become very well respected for your uh,
Expertise.
expertise in that area. But what he said, and sorry, I realize I went off on a bit of a tangent here, but the fourth one is the most important, right, or the most interesting. And he said more of us than has been previously understood are in this, which is what he calls a spiral. And he says that many of us experience a 7 to 12-year cycle where we're deeply interested in something,
Nice. Sure.
very deeply interested, and we want to attain mastery and meaning, right? One has no point without the other. In that, and then it's something else. So this spiral, as he calls it, and he says you can have multiple spirals inside of your own thing. And he says also that a lot of people who are on the spiral have been pushed towards a linear path because that's all that has been understood so far.
Yeah.
So, and if you're interested, please watch the podcast. It's Arthur Brooks' podcast called Office Hours, if I remember correctly. But getting back to what we were talking about, I think many parents today, are a lot more understanding of shifts and changes. And of a child saying that I know I started off with this, but this isn't really what I want to do, and I want to pursue something else. I think that plasticity within the working life is a lot more. There's a lot more acceptance to that plasticity now. So, what would I like to learn? Like to learn from them? I'd like to learn this plasticity, this ability to move around a bit based on what I want, right? To put my interests first, uh, to see how I can add value to an organization, but not be duty bound to an organization, not think that an organization is duty bound to take care of me. And to listen a little bit more to what really interests me because I've got to live with myself for the next, whatever, half a century, three quarters of a century, and I had better like what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
So that flexibility, that plasticity is, I think, something we could definitely learn from them.
Got it.
And also, yeah, one more thing, that ability to learn from various sources,
Nice.
curiosity.
I think back to times when the skills that I had inside of, say, technical skills that I had were really cutting edge for that time, right? Whether it's knowing the ins and out of a Nokia phone and I remember
Excel.
Rohin, huh?
Excel.
Excel is also like, I don't know if my work requires me to be as good anymore because, I'm not in charge of data at of that degree anymore. But this, for example, there's this thing I was reading in the Ken where Rohin's talking about folder systems and what pride he has in man. And I was like, immediately, connected to that, saying that sounds like me. I just love a neat folder system, which is not a skill at all required when everything is in the cloud. We're using Google Docs and so on, right? So I like to kind of keep my hand in. I might not have the same adeptness, but I'd like to also not become a troglodyte. So that's something
Sure.
that I'd like to learn from that generation. And I think the other is again, there's this um, uh, sketch by Kenny Sebastian, the stand-up comic, about these young people have this thing called boundaries. He says, and he kind of really,
I've seen
you
that.
know, yeah, hashes it out. It's beautiful, right? But I think I'm a little late to that game, and I'd love to kind of see how they build nuance in it and kind of stand on their shoulders and figure out with them how to do
Sure.
that better.
So it's interesting that the two of us want very different things
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah,
them, right?
yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, Pavan, is this is a bingo, and there are bingo, mm, so to speak. You've got a card, I've got a card, and they're both a 3 by 3 with different things written on it and in different order. So we'll pick one chit per person and read it out and talk about that a little bit, and then whoever wins, like corners or one of each of the 3 rows or full
I think I
house.
get the broad.
Uh,
Yeah. Sure. 101.
101 is toxic culture dressed up as something else. So we know
Toxic
this.
culture dressed up as something else.
Yeah, so you have organizations saying, where we alluded to this earlier, right? We're a family like place, right? Which also means that, family also gets free pass with a lot of abuse, and so do we because we're a family, remember? Or it could be that um, uh, we believe in candid
Feedback.
feedback, and then that turns lacerating, but you're like, yeah, but I thought we told you that we're candid, or I thought we told you that we're in a hurry to build this, so we'll expect you to always be on, and including canceling your wedding holiday or whatever, and all of that's acceptable. So various shades in which toxic culture
Sure,
comes dressed
sure.
up.
Unremitting long hours.
Yeah.
And all you were told was that, we're goal oriented.
Mm.
So all of these, I think, are fine up to a point,
Mm.
right? And like anything else, too much of a good thing ends up being a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. So, any words of advice for if you come across an organization that you join with full positive intention, and then over a period of time, either the culture turns toxic or you figure out that there's a degree of discomfort with the culture and norms?
The first thing to do, honestly, is to check your expectations, right? This is work.
Mm.
Um, it isn't your family. Having said which, and why the only reason I'm saying that is be realistic about your expectations. I'm not saying expectations are wrong or that you shouldn't have them. You must. But once you've checked your expectations and you've, let's say, come to the conclusion that there is indeed a problem, figure out if it's a problem that you can live with or it's a problem that necessitates you leaving. So, for example, if it's a problem that's, let's say, uh, around the lines of abusive, whether sexual or otherwise, um, if I think
Yeah.
that's a definite no-no,
Yeah.
right? That's something. I mean, I have a kid that age, and I would be like, leave for sure. There are other problems where I would probably say, see if you can adapt.
Mm.
See if you can have conversations with your manager. So, for example, you believe that you're not listened to, although you might have a perfectly good point of view. See whether trying it in different ways, whether influencing, whether upward influencing feedback, see whether any of these tools pay dividends. So, in other words, see whether you want to live with it,
Mm.
adapt to it, or leave.
Absolutely.
And leave is definitely any kind of abuse. Like, that's not even up for discussion.
Yeah. So there's a there's a spectrum, if you
Yeah,
will. There are some
exactly.
things that are non-negotiable, right? And at the same time, also check to see if the, what you're calling toxic is indeed that, right? If it's a lack of, say, feedback systems, that's really what it is, So then, can you ask for what you need, and can you keep asking till you receive? Or can you work around, instead of calling it feedback, can you just go and ask for, I've done this, tell me how you feel about it, or whatever, and get what you need, right?
Yeah.
Get your need met.
The problem around feedback isn't genuine toxicity. If I have to let the cat out of the bag, managers are scared of giving
It's
feedback.
capability half the
It's
time.
capability,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They haven't got it and they don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
how to pay that forward.
The one I have is 13, badly timed job loss.
I have it too.
So we've also put all of this because most of this is recognizable. You can't go, a couple of decades of work without experiencing some of
Sure,
this. And
sure.
I certainly remember um, going into work thinking it's going to be a regular day and coming back saying, "What just happened? So I don't have work." Wha- Right. So, and I remember you said there's no such thing as a well-timed job loss.
Unless you've chosen it.
Unless you,
And even
yeah,
then, sometimes you've chosen it for your own self respect.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
if you've chosen that to move on to something better,
That's fine.
that's great.
Yeah.
But otherwise, badly timed job losses can be either, again, push or pull. Push is the company wants you out, which could be because your role's redundant, could be because your manager and you don't get along, uh, could be because you are a bad fit or you're perceived as a bad fit. That's a push. The pull is that you feel that this isn't for you and you might not even have an alternative
Alternative in hand, and you just
and
leave.
you
Yeah.
and you still leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Ways to counter, deal with, plan
Yeah.
for.
First of all, I think understand, like we said a little earlier, that the organization does not have a mandate to take care of anybody in perpetuity. So this can happen. Uh, Employment at will, isn't that the phrase? Uh, from your perspective, I'm going to say understand that this is one of the most brutal things that can happen, right? I think that along with losing a parent and some one other thing. This is among the top most hurtful things that can happen,
Yeah.
especially if you didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Actually, even if you did see it coming. Purely from a sort of logistical perspective, I would say the things you can do is keep a few months' rent in the bank, 2 to 3 months' rent in the bank. It'll take away the immediate fear of what now, and that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Um, that's from a logistical perspective. From an opportunity perspective, I would say ask yourself, now that this has happened, whether I wanted it to or not, and I've, in that sense, almost been given a new lease of choice. What would I like to do with this? Do I want to jump back into something that's just going to pay the bills, or would I like to take the time and the lease of energy that it's got me to think about what I would rather do? So two very different axes. One's logistical, the other is a little more sort of uh, philosophical, if you
Yeah.
like, but both are important.
Yeah. Absolutely. To build on that, something that I tell people across career stages is always keep an eye out for the kind of organization that you want to work with in the next 5 odd years.
Yeah.
Have a list of 3, 4 organizations in peacetime, not in wartime. Make connections with those people inside those organizations. Figure out who does similar work to you. Figure out who their manager is. Connect with them on LinkedIn. These days, there's so many opportunities to meet people outside of LinkedIn as well. There are all these, various kinds of forums. There's groups of people meeting all the time, right? You're also not as disconnected as say we used to be, right?
Yeah.
So there's always like a 2 or 3 degree separation from people that you want to get to know. Uh, do your work in public. So, your work should be visible for somebody who wants to see what you've done recently. So, a lot of the work that you do for the organization is by default not going to be possible to keep in public because, it's you've signed an NDA saying this organization's information stays within. So keep thinking of ways in which you can demonstrate your capability, in some way or the other in public. And that way, somebody wants to say, oh, okay, this person has reached out to me. I wonder what they're like. They can, by looking you up, get something approximating an understanding, right? So so like I said, there's peacetime, there's wartime. You prepare for wartime during peacetime. So keep connections, keep uh, plans of where you want to work, keep clarity on that. So if the boom lowers, you know what to do next. You just go plan B.
Yeah, I think one area we differ a little bit is I'm not such a big fan of saying here's the organization I want to work with, because organizational codes of conduct, if you like, change. You've seen this. For me, I think, and this is just me, I think it's more important to say what kind of work do I want to do, and therefore what kind of organization, rather than put my faith behind an org.
Sure, I review that list every once in a while.
Sure.
So
Okay, fair.
that's one way to keep it relevant.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. You can see that we don't agree on everything, and that's fine.
Pick.
My turn. And we have number, ooh, the sign of the devil. Six,
Oh,
six, six.
I have one column, rightmost column gone. Look,
What?
looky here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so this
Not
is
say it.
666, a spectrum of bad bosses, um, going between merely incompetent to downright abusive. Um, so, what do you think, Pavan, if you meet one of the.
You will.
Yeah,
I think, again, a little bit like toxic culture, you have to figure out whether you can live with it, right? Uh, in other words, can you sort of manage your manager? Uh, or is it something that you need to exit? Again, safety comes into this. And if what you have is a manager who's abusive, either verbally or physically, leave. It's not even up for discussion, right? I know there are mechanisms in the organization today to take care of this problem, but if I'm to be very honest, they're slow and clunky and don't always work out the way that they should, right?
yeah,
Justice is nice as an idea, but
doesn't always come through.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say it's far more important that you safeguard your safety, mental, physical, and you get out. That, if we leave that out of it,
Yeah.
let's take the kind of boss who can't tell me why I'm doing what I'm doing. So therefore is incapable of showing me the big picture, right? There's entirely too many of them. So it's up to me then to try and figure out what the big picture is and how my work dovetails into that.
Yeah.
It's up to me to ask for more responsibility. I don't know, what other kind of bad bosses do you have?
Insecure bosses who will be like, oh my god, you're so good at this, and then, like, make sure that you don't get to do that kind of work in the future. Badmouth you to clients, potentially badmouth you
Not
to
showcase your work.
not showcase your work, not stand up for you, not allow you to the safety to make mistakes, uh, that entire spectrum of things.
Yeah. The thing is, right, that outside of safety, if you can't keep evading bad bosses.
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of say that if I get a good boss,
Great.
that's the exception, right? And also, in my experience, I remember thinking, oh, I went through a series of, I started off with a brilliant boss, and then I had a series of, absolute numpties. And I remember thinking, well, at least I'm getting to learn all the things that I don't want to do when it's my turn, at leadership.
I think that's a hard way to learn that lesson.
Of course it is, but you also got to live. So I couldn't exit in that moment. It wasn't bad enough for an exit,
Yeah.
right? But I'm at least like, I have a very clear picture of not doing these things, and I know I'll be certainly better than what I'm receiving now. And that's kind of helped me set the standard for what to do well. Because also in my case, my first boss was amazing. So I just assume that's how everybody's life is, right? You don't really know how good you have it till you don't have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I had the opposite. Um, as you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
uh, was he was vaguely verbally abusive, like just enough to undermine your self confidence for years to come. But what he did, while it wasn't physically harmful, so he would do things like ask me to go into, and it was a sales role, right, that I started with. So all these really strange parts of the country, and while a lot of people were allowed to fly, I was told that I had to take a train. So I'm going to like parts of Bihar and parts of UP, and I've been in holdups and dacoities and all kinds of strange things that have happened. And at some point, you realize that it can't be characterized as abuse, but it certainly can be characterized as acute neglect.
Neglect. Yeah. Yeah.
Where if I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I would be like, this ain't working.
Yeah.
Once you've asked yourself the questions about what kind of bad boss this is, and you take a good, clear eyed look at it, right? You eliminate your own biases, be honest with your own answers.
Nice.
Once you've done that, I would say really trust your instincts. If your instinct tells you and it's persistent, right? It's not your ego, it's your instinct saying something's wrong, then something's wrong. And you need to think about what's right for you.
Yeah, because that's the harm that power does, right? It undermines your own self-belief, your own sense of
Exactly.
capability, and that's crazy amount of effort to build back.
A friend of mine once said to me many, 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 many years ago, I was a teenager, right? So decades ago at this point. But it's always stuck with me. He said, I always trust my instincts because when I stop, they weaken. And he had great instincts for some things. And I have tried to make that one of my credos that I live by, right? That I trust my instincts because I have given them a lot of reign over the years and they've not usually let me down.
Yeah.
If I start questioning them, then they're going to say, oh, you know what, I'm not really
Anyway, I'm not
needed.
welcome. Yeah.
So let me take a back seat. So that instinct. And that instinct, here's the thing, that instinct is often going to fly in the face of what you're told by well-meaning family and friends. So going to say, stick it out, it's not as bad as you think, whatever.
Correct.
If it's as bad as you think, or if it feels as bad, if it feels unmanageably toxic, you've got a problem. Look out for yourself.
Yeah. My turn to pick the
I
next.
really want to bingo.
Yeah. 110%. Gave it all, got beep all.
What?
So this is a situation where you really slog, have a great year, and then get a 5% increase. Or you're told that if you meet these three criteria, you'll get promotion or you'll get some kind of growth. And then somebody comes back looking sheepish and says, I tried really hard, but then it didn't happen because of XYZ reasons out of my control, quite possibly out of their control. But you're standing there feeling like I did everything and now I'm let down by the larger system. And there's a feeling of helplessness that you're dealing with.
Unfortunately, all too common.
Yeah. So this also exists in conjunction with a bunch of other things. Quite often, people feel this very acutely because there's something else. If I need that extra money because now I have a child or I have a partner or
So you've budgeted.
budgeted saying 3 months of struggle, then things will get better. Then I'll do that thing, and suddenly you can't. And so it's really like
Don't count your eggs,
weighing
etc.
on you very badly. Yeah, yeah,
But it's not just financial budgeting, right? There's also emotional
yeah.
space that you've given this growth. And I think what's important to understand is that very often managers make promises that they really have no way to keep. Managers are human, just like the rest of us. And it's not unheard of for a manager to promise you something that's not within their scope because they want performance that they see as being perhaps difficult to sustain. And so you get promised promotions, hikes, increments. And what happens, unfortunately, is there's a few things that can happen. At a very broad level, the entire economy could be in a very different place, right? That's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
Right? I work for you, you promise me a promotion, uh, the economy goes into the toilet, you can't give me what you promised me. That's, well, force majeure, as they say.
Yeah.
However, the more common thing is that what ends up happening is that there is a pyramid of both promotions and increments. And you are one of the many people that's up for
Mm.
a promotion or an increment,
Mm.
and that gets discussed at sort of like a round
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
And there are fewer openings than there are candidates,
Correct.
much like a common exam.
Yeah.
So that's really what
Yeah.
happens.
The number of times I walked into one of these conversations where there's a budget and salary revisions to be allotted, and multiple managers losing it saying, "But I have promised. My word is on the line," right? So it's not like by the time they come back and they look awful. You've been there, I've been
Multiple
there,
times, yeah.
right? I've committed to somebody that I'll make sure I make this happen. And the trouble is, at that point, the viewpoint you have is that I can make it happen.
It seems
In
like
a
it.
year, that viewpoint changes because either my manager hasn't given me clarity, or I come back and then I realize that there are other forces at play that I didn't think of earlier,
Yeah,
right? And suddenly you have to break your word, and um, it's awful.
it's awful.
But yeah, so it really gives you clarity when you be born at the receiving and the giving end of
Yeah.
that experience,
Yeah.
right?
So,
So
well, I have a sort of a different lens that I look at this through, right? And we talked about this, which is don't restrict yourself to a 1 year
exactly,
horizon
yeah.
on your growth. I would suggest at least a 3 year horizon because that gives these peaks and troughs time to even out a little bit. So hopefully what's happened is that you've done good work this year. Your manager goes in, he or she gets shot down and told, I'm sorry, we can't give so and so this promotion this year. And they exact some kind of an implicit promise that if so and so keeps up the good work, they'll get it next year.
Next year, yeah.
So if it happens the next year, then you know you've done good. The thing though is you can't really afford to take your foot off the pedal.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So there are no
Also, there's
guarantees.
no guarantee, but also kind of ask for it early on. This is something I
Oh,
tell people, which is,
absolutely.
say, this April, I was expecting growth and I didn't get it. And my manager says next year for sure. From May onwards, start putting that pressure saying it's happening, right? It's happening, right? It's happening, right? What's the first
You
possible
don't want them to
opportunity?
go into this roundtable meeting with you as a last minute
Right?
candidate. You want to
Yeah.
be front and center of the attention as much of the entire year as possible.
Yeah. So you're doing two things. You're making your displeasure very clear to your manager, to their manager, to anybody who'd listen, while not coming across
As disgruntled.
as disgruntled. And at the same time, you're keeping your performance and your side of the bargain up.
Yeah.
Right. So you're doing both. And
I just think it's not very different, honestly, if you think about it, to a child asking for a particular gadget, let's say an iPad, and being told, well, we can't get you it this year, we can next year.
we'll see next year.
We'll see next year,
Yeah.
right? Now, what does the child do?
Yeah.
Am I getting it? Am I getting
Yeah.
it? Am I
Yeah.
getting it?
Yeah.
It's honestly not very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't take your eye off the ball.
Yeah. Pick.
Okay, look. All right, let's see what we got. And, I have lucky number minus 25,
Ah.
which is committed money
Mm.
not paid out. And I have a bottom line bingo.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. So this is really a situation where you've been told you're going to get performance bonus, year-end bonus, you hit a sales target and you get something extra, whatever, and you do everything that's asked of you and you don't get it. Again, all too common.
Yeah.
Right? Happens especially when you're leaving an organization. So let's handle that part of it first. That's the easier bit to articulate. Happened to you? I know
Yeah.
it has. Yeah, happened to
Yeah.
me. Yeah. So here's what happens, right? You've done stellar work during the year and you quit while the performance bonuses are being decided. Guess what's happening? There's a finite pool of resources, which is money in this case, and that pool is not going to get allocated to the people who are staying back.
Who are investing back in the
Right.
organization.
So that's the retention bonus in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's sort of articulated as a performance bonus for the year that's gone by, but in reality,
Yeah.
it's even more of a retention
Yeah.
bonus.
Always is. And in larger organization, that's part of your employment contract that, if you are, that money will come into your account, say in June for the previous FY. And if you are serving notice or serve notice in the next month or whatever, you won't get the money. right? In smaller organizations and many other organizations, not necessarily, it's not a function
It's
of
not as
size.
clear.
It's just that if you haven't experienced that up until now, it might not be part of your contract, but it's unsaid, rules of the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, think about it,
Yeah.
right? Is the move is serving notice before you are paid your bonus, and by paid I don't mean just communication. I
Committed.
mean in the
Yeah.
bank.
Is it in the money? Is it in the bank? Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about money, right? There are other
Yeah.
reasons to move. If
Yeah.
it's worth it, it's worth it.
2008 market uncertainty. You've got
I know.
another
Center line.
center
Center
line.
line
Very nice.
bingo.
Yeah, so I've said market uncertainty and 2008 because of Lehman Brothers 2008 seared in the brains of a certain
A lot of
generation.
people might not know what you're talking about.
Yeah, do you want to tell?
So, okay. 2008 was this huge financial market crash where there was, if I remember correctly, there was a housing crisis
Yeah.
and there's something to do with mortgage loans in the US.
Yeah.
And then there was this large company, finance company called Lehman Brothers, and then they sort of went, they tanked and they went belly up. And there was a ripple on effect right across the world where uh, money was tight and it no longer bought you what it used to. People were laid off. I was in retail. I was traveling up and down the length and breadth of the country, shutting down large retail stores, negotiating with mall developers, with landlords, laying off people.
Yeah.
So market uncertainty is again, in that sense, force majeure. If I think of it in terms of three circles broadly, right? Sort of like this. This is going to be very shabby, like a target, but three concentric circles. I'm going to say the inner circle is a circle of control. It's what you can do, right? It's what you can control. You can control your response to uncertainty, to bosses, to
Yeah.
whatever. Then the circle of influence, which is people around you, and you have some degree of influence with people around you. Then the circle of concern. Stuff like a market crash comes very much into the outer circle.
It's like
It's a circle
weather.
of, it's
There's
like
nothing
weather.
you can do about it.
It's like traffic.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. Sort of counterintuitively, though, the circle of concern, which is the outermost circle, which we can do nothing about, is what we tend to worry about the most.
Correct. Correct.
And that's just how it is. This is, I'm going to go back to what I said. Can I just say one quick thing? In an earlier situation, I spoke about keeping some money in the bank for 2 or 3 months of rent. Same.
Yeah.
Have some liquidity.
Yeah.
Right? Just these things tend to follow. Okay, I think this is important. These things tend to follow a bit of a
Yeah. There's a cyclical
there's a
nature to this.
cyclical nature
Yeah.
to these things, right?
Yeah.
So it'll feel like the end of the world for a bit,
Yeah.
and it's always darkest before the dawn, so it'll get really sucky, and then things will start improving. The thing to do is to realize that it's a market cycle. Markets exist for a very good reason. And when they are sort of over leveraged, they tend to correct themselves, or there'll be an outside influence that corrects them. You need to have enough wherewithal to tide that over.
Yeah. And flexibility to sort of be like, oh, this isn't the same as good times. So maybe there is something that I get that keeps me afloat, isn't something that will make me rich, but this is not the time to be imagining being rich and, take options that, choose from limited options that exist possibly. And then,
Like, for example,
like, the number of people I know around 2008 who switched roles to something else because that's all that was available in that moment. And that became the turning point for them to say, oh, why don't I do more of this? And once the markets picked up, it became, the new normal for them to stay in that role, or, pick organizations that are hiring that you wouldn't otherwise, choose to be with. And there's
so
a lot
choosing
of
stability really is what
choosing
you're saying,
stability
right? Absolutely.
over, yeah. And like I said, I think just kind of plan for these things to happen every 7-10 years, and
Actually,
therefore,
I think the cyclical nature sharpening. So now it's more
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
every
3-4 years,
three,
more
four
like,
years.
yeah,
So it's going to happen,
correct,
right? And
yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah,
Yeah. There's a good rule at those times, which is keep your liquidity close. right? But also, if you look at it, and I'm no expert on this, but if you just look at how Berkshire Hathaway works, if stuff's going down, valuations are going down, some stocks are going down, if they're fundamentally sound, and if
Hold.
that's your game, hold or buy,
Sure.
right? So, but just understand this part of it. And if you're at the early stages of a career, you need to have the liquidity and the patience to time things over. This is not the time for risks. Number 001, and I have a left line bingo, which is I got flak for taking time off, uh, even emergency time off. Sure, been there. So I remember maternal grandfather died, and I got flak for it. A particular organization. Uh, my daughter was born a couple of weeks ahead of schedule, and I got time off. And what I was actually told was, "What role are you going to play there?"
After she was born.
Yeah.
Wow, you're just the father, right?
Yeah, all I did was take an extra day off.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah,
Such sweet people.
absolute sweethearts. Um,
So,
this is, well, you know what? I'm going to lump this under toxicity.
yeah, absolutely.
And this is, in my mind, this is psychologically deeply unsafe.
Yeah.
Because you start questioning whether the things that make life worth living, like relationships, even matter in this world, right? And that's a bad place to be in. So I'm going to say you need to find a different place to work.
Yeah, you don't have to make any sudden moves if you don't want to.
No, not sudden.
But be
But keep
very
your
clear about
counsel
what
that
kind of people these are that you're working with,
absolutely.
and work from the premise that you deserve better.
Yes.
I'm actually going to add, there's a bunch of organizations now that have that no leave, unlimited leave policy or whatever, right? And while many organizations come at it from a good intention, with good intention, and enough organizations that actually stand by it and give people unlimited time off and not ask any questions. But on average, organizations that have an unlimited leave policy rule, employees end up taking between 10 and 12 days in a year. And in India, the minimum requirement is 18, right?
1.5 per month.
1.5 a month.
Yeah.
And people will average around that, like 15, 16 easy, because it's life. In a year, you'll need that kind of time off. But because you're told this, very often people choose not to. And, organizations are now figuring that out.
So is that like an overblown sense of duty?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when this will be considered too much, so I'd better not rock the boat. That's nasty, right? There are organizations I know that do it very well.
I would have actually assumed it comes from a good place.
It started from a good place.
Right.
Somebody figured out, oh, but this is actually working in our favor.
Wow.
Now that's become the new nominal. Especially, so if
I'm
you're
never
in
going
the
to look
kind
at
of
the workplace with the same eyes again.
right? Yeah. So if you're in the kind of organization where they, on one hand, say that we have no unlimited leave policy, and then they're like, oh, you're going away for long weekend, huh?
Side eye.
Side eye, yeah, all that. Then, and because of that, you're changing your decision.
Sure.
Watch
Wow.
out.
Oh, yes.
There's a role reality mismatch.
Yes.
Again, entirely too common. When you join or when you're interviewing, they tell you a thing. And then when you come on board, you realize there's something entirely different that you're dealing with. It could be responsibility, it could be who you're working with, it could be the work itself, it could be technology you're working on, could even be designation, all kinds of things. And I remember you said this at some point that, the best sales pitch that you're going to encounter is the one where
the one
there's a
before you
surprise.
join.
Yeah, the one before you join, and there's a surprise waiting for you once you finish joining. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so I'm going to say the way to deal with it is really to evaluate, how much of pressure can you start putting, saying, this is what I was committed. Um, People like us who are old fashioned put all of this in writing in the lead up to the conversation. Anything that's a conversation is in writing so that you can go back and say, yeah, you did say this. That's one of the reasons why I moved, right? And so you have the locus to have that conversation.
Yes.
So document as much as possible, trust but verify. So it's easier to trust when everything is written down somewhere.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to say, on the other side of the fence, to also perhaps keep an open enough mind while not falling prey to confirmation bias, to see whether there is merit in the new role as well. Something that you
Yes.
hadn't considered,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's open-mindedness.
Right.
It's not confirmation bias.
No.
And if after thinking about it, you're like, no, this isn't what I want, you're the best judge.
Yeah. And have those conversations.
Have those, don't let them
Don't,
fester.
yeah, don't let it fester. Don't be like, oh, yet another time. And I've been there. Once again, an organization has gotten the better of me. No, have the conversation.
Yeah.
Let people know how important it is for you. Let
Yeah.
people know you're upset.
Yeah.
Your unhappiness has a space on that table. So,
And
make
also
space for
understand, I
it.
think, that many of these changes, these mismatches, don't happen out of bad intent. They happen.
Circumstances have changed.
Circumstances.
Yeah.
Circumstances have changed. There was a role. Now suddenly there isn't, that role doesn't
Yeah.
exist for
Yeah.
whatever reason. It's been
Yeah.
migrated, it's
Yeah.
been made redundant,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And you have two people, picture an HR BP or the hiring person and the manager having this conversation saying, but we made them the offer.
Yeah. I've had that conversation. I made an offer on Friday, come back on Monday, and they're like,
Gulp.
gulp.
Right? So maybe it helps to understand that it's usually not from a bad place,
Yeah.
but your rights are to stand up for yourself
Yeah.
and ask.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Agree.
Do you have a full bingo?
No, I have one left.
Darn. Well,
So do you.
yeah, so chances are that we're both going to get a bingo, right? I need to win. I'm sorry.
Okay, you win. What is it?
99. A dream derails role slash business.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just say one thing before you start talking about this?
You won?
No, no. Yes, but that wasn't what I was going to say. It's a bingo. What's the movie?
Oh, I don't know.
Inglorious Bast. Didn't watch video.
I forgot. I
Who
forgot that
acted in
part.
it?
Who acted? Yo, this is not a quiz. I refuse to answer on the
Who
grounds
was the
that
character?
I Gotilla, boss. If I knew, then I'll know the rest of the story as well, no?
He says it's a bingo, and then he's like, "Is that how you say it?" or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, we digress. I digress. Dream derail. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you talk about the possibility of a dream derailing when it's your dream, it's your business, it's your plan, and then suddenly a few years in you're like, oh, we're so far away from how I thought this would go. It's also true of your career path, right? When I started out, if I think back to how I thought it would go versus where it went a few years in, it's super hard to be like either I don't want that thing anymore as much, or the circumstances have changed, and while I might still want that thing, the circumstances in which I will get that
Yeah.
aren't okay with me, or there's a mismatch between my beliefs and ethics and what's on.
Happen for multiple reasons, right?
Right, all kinds of reasons. Yeah.
Let's start with the one we see the most often, which is not, it's not your business. It's not your money. It's not your vision of a business that's gone south, but it's just your career trajectory
Yeah.
that's not panned out the way you expected it to.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'm going to say this is just, in its essence, this is just life.
Yeah.
Very few things pan out the way you think they're going to pan out when you're just just out of college and you're dewy and bright-eyed, and you think that you're going to shove a lever. This is from an old Ukrainian folktale, but shove a lever in the world and sort of turn it on its axis.
Oh.
Sorry, newsflash. I'm really sorry, but no, that
Yeah.
very rarely happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A career trajectory very rarely works out the way it does. That by itself is no bad thing,
Correct.
right? Very often it's the roads we didn't expect to take that give us the maximum satisfaction.
Absolutely.
Doesn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah.
So dreams derailing are very common. Can you make something of it is the question.
Yeah.
Right. What do you have left? What's the merit in pursuing this new line? I think those are the ways I would look at it. And also to ask yourself, I think a very powerful question is, how am I going to feel about this Like, let's say, for example, when I sold my share in my business as an entrepreneur, right? Did I love it for the 11 years that I went after it? I absolutely loved it. And about the 9th or 10th year, I realized that I was done with it. Right? It was the culmination of a dream. It had culminated, and I was like, okay, now I'm done with it. And yet, when I sold my share, it still felt like the bottom had dropped out of my world.
Yeah.
But I always asked myself what I was going to feel like 2 or 3 years down the line. And very clearly, my answer was, I'm going to feel happy that I did this. So I think a good question is, how am I going to feel looking back at this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on the broader my business, my dream thing. Career sidetracks, I mean, those just happen.
They just happen. There's
They just
entirely too
happen.
many things out of your control.
Absolutely.
And if I have to look back at my career and the number of times I've made changes and feeling very
Adjusted. Yeah, the way I look at it is you're
yeah,
adjusting.
adjust, yeah.
Yeah.
But also the present day me that I am, I've met that person on all the paths that I didn't expect to take.
Nice, nice, right?
Right? And
So your present day, sorry, I'm really sorry for interrupting, but really what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is your present day needs aren't the needs of 25-year-old you. And so if you'd continued on that track, you'd probably have been genuinely discontented.
I certainly wouldn't have been sitting here having this conversation with you,
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
happy to be doing that.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
And you can connect the dots only looking back.
Looking back. And so this brings me to when you were talking about, your experience. I suddenly was very strongly reminded of the Stockdale paradox, right? You have to hold both realities together. One that, this sucks, to put it,
Yeah.
simply, that
Yeah.
circumstances aren't brilliant. And so to kind of fully, in its entirety, take note of and receive the bleakness of the situation that you're experiencing, and at the same time also hold the truths that I am very sure that I will prevail, right? And not lose hope of the reality in some time in the future that you will prevail. So to not
And
give
come
up
out
the
stronger,
ghost
in fact.
and come out stronger. Yeah.
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 You want to explain the Stockdale paradox?
Just did. So if it's a Venn diagram,
Yeah.
it's two things, and the intersection is where the magic happens, which is it's all looking very bleak right now, and I have to fully understand just how bleak it is all. And at the same time, also recognize that I have the capability, I have the hope, I have the belief that I will prevail.
And it's a curious condition of the human race. I read this, that we believe that bad times are going to last forever. We've really struggled to see a way out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're hit with let's say a job loss. It's like irredeemably bleak. You just can't see
any future where this
is going to get better. And yet, this happens to most people, and most people prevail.
Yeah.
Even without knowing what the Stockdale paradox is. So, yes, absolutely. Dreams derail. Thank you.
That was fun.
That was awesome.
And hopefully a lot of home truths. So, in closing, Pawan,
Yes.
if I have to ask you, what if you could travel back in time and say something
I think I know the question.
to 22, 23-year-old you were the age that you were when you started working, what would you want to say to them?
There's maybe a couple of things, right? The first is to say, have fun with this in your 20s.
Yeah.
The 20s, I don't know, maybe it's a lot like your first serious relationship. Very difficult to have the one in your 20s because you're still figuring yourself out, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So I would say have fun, experiment with different kinds of work, see what works for you. It is the experimentative phase. And I think many of us are going to regret not experimenting in our 20s,
Sure.
especially if you have the wherewithal to do so. And honestly, in your 20s, you experiment, you take a misstep. It's not like it is back in our time when people would look at your CV and say, what is this curious anomaly?
Yes.
Right? No, it's generally a lot easier now.
Yeah.
A lot better. So I would say experiment. And therefore, take yourself less seriously.
Nice.
as part of the recency effect, because I listened to Arthur Brooks just a couple of days ago, I'm also going to say, ask yourself if you truly are on a linear career path. And if you're not, and you're the kind of person who's in a spiral career path, which is that you like to do things for between 7 and 12 years and then try to do something new, which is averaging out at about a decade, right? What could you do to make that better? How could I take, and I have done this without even knowing that this existed, right?
Yeah.
I have always built on what I've done earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So therefore, what would I say? Understand that whatever you've done has payoffs in what you're going to do. I think these are the two things.
Lovely.
Use my 20s to experiment and build on what I've done before. And have fun. And continue to have fun.
Yeah. So if I think back to 22-year-old me, I was like in a new city, just kind of rebuilding life, far away from where I'd spent the last decade and a half or so. So I'm going to say trust that it'll all be all right.
Yeah.
Right? You also have a certain brand of how will it all be anxiety in your 20s that, so if I had to just say that to myself, that it'll all be fine. Nothing is going to be the way you expected it to be, right? But in ways that you cannot understand, it'll all be fine. You'll be fine.
Really.
So just give yourself that grace, space, whatever you need to just kind of coast and do everything that you can, and you'll be fine.
When you say coast, you don't mean don't try.
I don't mean, yeah, I don't mean chill out.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in that sense, keep the right amount of tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
don't get tense. Yeah.
Right. It's like a rubber band, right?
It's like a rubber band.
Too much
Yeah.
tension and you snap the band.
Yeah.
Too little tension and there's no accumulated force in
It's
the
not
rubber
doing
band.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Lovely.
Yeah.
It never works out just the way you think it's going to do, right?
Yeah. And the other I think is going to be, and this has really worked out for me, is this is one of those Esther Perel things, right? The quality of your relationship determines the quality of your life.
Oh, yeah, man.
I am not even one bit regretful of the people that I've spent time with. Not all of those relationships pan out, not all of those friendships pan out, inside of family, outside of family, blah. But you need to put in the hours. You need to meet people. You need to even go through the heartbreak of, oh, this person I thought was going to be my friend for life, and I talk to them once a year, and it's not what I thought it would be, right? And but you end up with a small handful of people in your corner, and it's ultimately so worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to the one thing, and I know we said we'd wrap this up, but maybe if I could say one last thing and then you could
Say one
add.
last thing after that.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely. And then it'll be the last. No, but it's this.
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand that, and I'm really pulling this out from what you said. The number of friends you have in your 20s,
Oh.
because this is something people are constantly worried about,
Well
right?
done.
You have so many friends in your 20s because you're just out of college, right? And you're meeting up, you go to a new city, you have a friend there from college, you're meeting up, you're getting dinner together, you're traveling on work. In your 30s, that number diminishes. You get busier, you have different commitments. In your 40s, you started figuring out who you want to spend time with, and that might even happen earlier. But who you want to spend time with is a very small subset of the people you can spend time with.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? So, in a sense, stronger but fewer relationships.
Yeah.
As you also get to understand yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's really okay.
There are 4 generations in the workplace. There is going to be strife in trying to understand,
All of them.
all of them. And it's important to also recognize, like, they talk about, so, and because there's a lot of conversation about Gen Z, I'm going to also say that they talk about breaking the generational trauma inside families, right? Of saying this stops with me. Just because I got hit by my parents doesn't mean I will hit my kids and so on. And that's the easiest example. The same thing translates into the workplace. Just because I was treated with disrespect, just because I was told that your career has to take 5 years to move to the next level, or that salaries will not be transparent, doesn't mean I have to perpetuate the same belief systems. some of it possible for me as a manager inside of an organization, some of it possible as a founder. Figure out what your what your uh, power, rights, responsibilities sort of breakup is. Do what you can for people, but know that each of us has the capability to say, just because I received this doesn't mean it needs to be paid forward. And to say this ends with me is super powerful. So
Absolutely. And I think from there to talk about what the generation that's currently occupying the corridors of power has to learn from the incoming generation, which is the ability to say, maybe I want something else, the ability to learn and move on, the ability to stay curious, sort of that mental plasticity, right?
yeah.
Is I think something that's invaluable and is honestly a very good tool in your toolbox for as you age,
Yeah.
right? And for the incoming generation, I'm going to say that there is value
Yeah.
to the bingo that we just played, which is that some of the lessons that the generation that's in situ right now, some of the lessons they've learned most of them, in fact, the hard way. And you don't throw the baby out of the bathwater, to use a very unhappy metaphor,
Yeah.
right? I would say separate the way that a lesson is communicated from the merit of the lesson itself,
Oh, lovely.
and ask yourself what you can take away.
Yeah, and I suppose the things that you fear a lot are very likely to happen, but also they are
But
not
not quite in the
as,
way that you think.
yeah, but they're not as scary or as dangerous as you perceive
Can
them
I
to be
say
for the most
this?
part.
Break up the things that you fear into, what do I fear happening the most, right? What do I fear the least, and what's the most likely,
Yes.
right? And then have a plan for each. And you will find 9 times out of 10 that what you fear the most is actually not what happens.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. So what you think is the most likely outcome is actually what's most likely to happen. It's going to be somewhere between that and what's least likely. And have a plan for that,
Yeah.
right? What's most likely is your uncertainty coalescing into fear.
Very nice.
Thank you, thank you. All these insights happening as we wind up our conversation.
That's also a great note to say goodbye for now on.
Absolutely. And yeah, great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for listening. And we'd love to hear from you.
It's true.